we go.
You've been endorsed by Steve Bannon, and here's the headline from the Pennsylvania Dems. Right-wing Wagner endorsed by leader of America's alt-right movement, Steve Bannon.
I love it.
It's Friday, October 6, 2017. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. On today's show, Trump visits Puerto Rico. He forgot to pack his T-shirt cannon, but he made do.
I'm just going to throw a couple of these and, oh, look how happy the people are.
Reminds Puerto Rico that Katrina was a real disaster, that Puerto Rico has thrown the U.S. budget out of whack, and that he is incapable of basic human compassion. Trump did suggest, however, that Goldman Sachs, or whoever, may just have to cancel Puerto Rico's debt. Mick Mulvaney, contender for the worst human being in the world, puts the kibosh on that. Says we shouldn't take what the president said word for word. Really? Yeah, like we didn't know that by now. By which he meant, of course, and no one's canceling Puerto Rico's debt. Las Vegas horror and status quo response from NRA-soaked politicians. If we can't talk about gun control and toxic white masculinity now, well, can we pencil in a date? Huh? Oh, you get back to us? Yeah, okay. PA Republican solution? The Hearing Protection Act of 2017. Yeah, that'll help. Mueller-led Trump-Russia probe gets to talk to Christopher Steele, author of The Dossier. Does this mean the pee-pee tape will be the topic of an open session? And Supreme Court season is underway. This year, voting and organized labor in the crosshairs. Janus versus AFSCME looks to accomplish what Fredericks could not. Barring another death of a right-wing justice, public sector unions are in trouble. And in a bit of a surprise, however, Tuesday, oral arguments were heard regarding Gill versus Whitford, basically a case that could bring an end to partisan gerrymandering. And justices, well, not Gorsuch, of course, but justices seemed open to that possibility. Interesting. And thanks to a cache of emails, internal emails, BuzzFeed reveals how Steve Bannon and Breitbart laundered the alt-right racists. Oh, yeah, and let's not forget Hurricane Nate. 22 people dead already. Abscuff KU helped raise over $5,000 for the adjunct faculty member who was kicked to the curb ahead of life-saving surgery. Precarity in action, folks. And I want to thank over 500 Raging Chicken readers who clicked on the link to find out how they could help contribute to the efforts to make sure that adjunct faculty member could afford their COBRA payments, can cover their rent while they recover. Surgery went well by all indications. It was last week. Still no budget in PA. Governor Wolf says that he's sick of playing games and will start managing the budget himself. Securitizing the state liquor stores is at the top of his list, which also may be a nice little smack in the eye to Turzai's plans to privatize the liquor stores. The refusal of PA Republicans to talk about any reasonable revenue package may lead to the full privatization of Penn State, Temple, Pitt, and Lincoln. And, of course, Standard & Poor's has downgraded PA's credit rating, again, like exactly as we said they would. That will cost PA taxpayers about $53 million a year in interest payments. Representative Tim Murphy is out, following revelations that this pro-life rep encouraged his mistress to have an abortion, and he conducted a reign of terror against his staff. State Rep Tom Marino blocks Raging Chicken on Facebook. Congressman, sorry. They both sound the same when they cry. Alt-right is making a serious play for PA stronghold. Identity Europa had a Lancaster coming out party. Now there's a podcast called Taking a Stand. First episode featured, of course, Identity Europa leader and PA native Evan McLaren, and the PA coordinator for Identity Europa, William Clark, who's actually been involved with that organization since the beginning. There's a reason why we're paying attention to this stuff, folks. And Represent PA is calling for November Days of Actions, including a march from Lancaster to Harrisburg beginning on November 10th, concluding with 2 days of action in the Capitol Rotunda on November 13th and 14th. And today's last call, it's the 60th anniversary of Sputnik. Mike Pence uses the occasion to help relaunch the National Space Council. Galactic capitalism on its way. He says the U.S. is going back to the moon, folks. Free Will released PV Fest in 16-ounce cans yesterday. It's a traditional malty Marzen, just in time for Oktoberfest, and I'll be picking some up later on today. Free Will partners with Down to Earth Cafe, great place, and to hold its Oktoberfest on Sunday, October 22nd. There's going to be 5 traditional German-style beers there and traditional German fare, and it'll all be at the Perkasie Brewhouse. You can even pick up a Free Will Stein for $10. And out in Harrisburg, Sunny Side Up cans are out at Pizza Boy. Oh, man, we got that and so much more on today's show. We want to remind you to tune into The Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll be there giving the weekly Resistance Report again. And Amanda Morris, the president of Kutztown University's Abscuff chapter, is also on the show talking about the situation with that adjunct that we've been covering. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And if you missed the show, no problems. Just go to thericksmithshow.com and click on the Free Speech TV icon in the sidebar. And if you like what you hear, you want to support our work, you want to support Pull No Punches Progressive Media, is that what I hear you asking? You want to find a way to do that? We got it for you. Become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to ragingchickenpress.org and look for the Support and Membership tab. Click Become a Member, and you're on your way. Not a member yet? Hey, are you not ready to? Not ready to become a member? Well, just become a member. I think that's a good idea. But look, okay, if you don't want to, that's all right. You can make a one-time donation just by clicking Donate instead. And we still have our back-to-school special running, folks. Back-to-school special runs through the end of October, and if you join at the $10 a month level, we'll send you a copy of Mark Bray's new book, Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook. Just become a member today. Maybe we'll even send you an audio clip of Sean coughing in the background. That'd be good. But if you don't want that book, we'll also send you an official Raging Chicken Press Stay Woke coffee mug instead. And I was thinking we might even have a couple extra copies of Naomi Klein's No Is Not Enough around too as well. So if you'd like to, swap that one out, we can do that for you too as well. Again, $10 a month will get you those wonderful things. So Sean, man, big week. Not, I'd like to say it's not as crazy as the past ones, but it's been wild. The only thing that makes this week feels a little bit different is that the end of the week felt a little calmer than the beginning of the week, which is new.
Yeah, the steel line for Rick Smith. I'm still waiting for my golden showers of honey.
Your golden showers of honey.
We're still.
Oh, do say more, Sean.
Wait, I forget how Rick put it, but it's not a shower of honey, pretty much. When he's talking about trickle down economics.
Yes. Your golden shower. That's what it's called. It's called a golden shower. Get it straight. Golden shower of honey. I'm like, what? Sean just went off the deep end, and he's like lost in breakfast foods. Yeah,
it's
man.
Still early. I only had 1 cup of coffee this morning.
Oh, poor baby. So, man, I just I don't know, man. The beginning of this week, with what happened in Las Vegas, 58 dead, over 500 people, I guess, with injuries. There's a report out now too as well that not only was he shooting into the crowd, but was also shooting at a fuel tank at a nearby airport. It hit that a couple times and punctured the outside. I guess it's like a dual triple wall, the outside wall. People said that wasn't really, they probably wouldn't have done anything. But man, holy cow!
I think we should actually put this conversation off for another few weeks, just because it's what the Republicans want us to do.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea, Sean. I don't want to politicize this, and I think that maybe in a few weeks, maybe
we have to send our thoughts and prayers first.
Well, yeah, I think we did that already, right? We did that was the next day, right? Or as it was happening, we said thoughts and prayers, right?
We did it after Sandy Hook.
Yeah, so let's
did it after Orlando.
Wait, I got my checklist here. So thoughts and prayers. We don't want to politicize it, so we have it at an appropriate time. Talk about
arm more good guys with guns.
More good guys with guns.
Yeah.
You know what? Oh man, I spilled some coffee on the rest of my list, but you know what? I'll just tune into the news and just watch it play out every single day. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's the same freaking. You're watching like the NRA like drenched discourse just unfold again.
I mean, like this brings me back not to like Sandy Hook when Sandy Hook happened. It like brought me back to where where the NRA had their press conference, right? I remember when Sandy Hook happened, and I was taking the final exam. It was end of the fall semester, finals are wrapping up, and I just remember driving home and hearing about this. And the next day, I guess it's like one of those like moments in history, where it's a defining that was just a defining moment in history with gun policy when LaPierre came out and had his crazy fucking press conference about, it was just Orwellian to like the T. Like everything about was like, or might as well have been by, Orwell from 1984, like pretty much. And just we've been stuck there ever since.
No, well, look, we've been stuck there for a long time. I mean, Sandy Hook was like, what happened?
But that cemented it.
Well,
like,
no,
you know what I mean?
What it was. Here was the big question that was on the table. What was the NRA? What was the NRA's threshold of pain? Right. I mean, at what point is it going to be too much that they're not going to be able to hold their line about, like you just give more weapons and that solves the problem, or it's not about the guns and all that kind of stuff. What Sandy Hook was is that all that garbage, right? I mean, when you basically you had all those kids who were killed, right? That you would think that would be the threshold of pain, and instead, no, they doubled down on it, right? And at that point, and I get while people are like, "Holy crap!" I mean, you hear what's his face from Connecticut. Chris Murphy kind of coming out again and saying, if they didn't do this in Sandy Hook, right? If these, and he's not talking about the NRA. Look, the NRA is going to do whatever the hell they want, right? It's the Republican politicians and some Democratic politicians who have just like been steeped in money from the NRA and who will just do their bidding regardless because they are so afraid that the NRA is going to call out their minions and vote against them. And this is part of the state of our politics, and I look, I don't know, man. It just, I don't know what else to say about it.
Like somebody put a tweet out the day we decided that killing 20 first graders, 20 children was not enough, was okay. That's when like pretty much the gun debate debate on gun control ended. And
that's when our public political soul died. Right, when it came to these issues. I mean, but still you've got people like, here we go, like once again, you've got Gabby Gifford out there with Mark Kelly. Gabby Gifford, remember, she had been shot, right, and she recovered, and now she's been kind of actively, out there for, trying to get gun control passed. And they're out there again. Mark Kelly wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post, right, and here it is again. It's like, we know what to do. Pass universal background checks, subject the sale of the most lethal weapons to stronger oversight and regulation, require guns to be safely secured in homes of gun owners, stop domestic abusers from getting guns, allow restraining orders to stop folks in a crisis from accessing firearms, establish a federal firearms tracking statute, require the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention or public health agencies to invest in preventing gun deaths and injuries. It's like it's the same thing. We know what to do. And instead, we got the very first thing that Trump passed, right? This is reported on Rachel Maddow's show the other night, last night, I think. The very first thing the Trump administration did, right? Its one accomplishment was to make it easier for people with mental illness to get guns.
And one of the things, even on the state level here in Pennsylvania, Republicans have been pushing really crazy bills, allowing guns in schools, allowing teachers or faculty members or your janitors to be armed,
Right.
And like also one of the things they were successful in pushing was allowing assault rifles for hunting. And that's a bill that Governor Wolf signed off on.
Yep.
Like, I mean, like, you need an assault rifle to go hunting? I mean,
No.
do you want the deer? Do you want there to be any deer left? You shoot at it?
Well,
Or are you that shitty of a shot where you need a whole entire mag to try to take out a deer?
No, look, I mean, there's one aspect of this discussion that, I don't know. Part of this is there's no doubt about it, right? Is that guy, right? If he didn't have ready access to all those weapons, right? Not as many people would be dead right now, right? So there's it. So on the one hand, so yes, right? I accept like the guy's got some issues, right? The guy's probably freaking off his all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, that's fine. Right. So therefore, why make people, we all know that there's always going to be bad people. Why make it easier for them to slaughter people? That's the first side. The other side of it, this is something,
knives at people from 50 stories up.
Right. Or even like bows and arrows or things like this. Right. I mean, whatever. I mean, this, Colleen Clemens and Amanda Morris were talking about this on the Inside, their Inside 234 podcast. Right. And, this is about, the whole thing about toxic masculinity too, as well, particularly about toxic white masculinity. Right, which we see echoes in the alt-right and all this other kinds of stuff right now. But it's like, that's part of the conversation too as well, is that the fact is that we find this, it's cool to have all these guns, right? And because there is no rational reason why people accumulate all these weapons, right? They're either accumulating out of some stoked sense of fear, right? Or because the same reason why kids nag their parents for certain toys at Christmas is because a desire has been cultivated by these industries, right? And it's the same kind of stuff to make it feel like this is cool. This is like your toys, right? And, you have people who call them their toys, it's the same kind of logic. It has nothing to do with hunting or all that other kind of garbage. This has to do with, a really serious problem that's deep in this culture.
Yeah, it's
so,
exactly.
No, and I look at it like this. So if you've got that serious problem that's deep in our culture, you know what you do? You make sure that they don't have access to weapons of mass destruction, right? I mean, it's like pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't know. We have
it's always the same type of guns they've been using for all these shootings.
Exactly.
Like it's always an AR-15. It's always some sort of semi-automatic rifle. I mean, the guy had aftermarket modifications on his gun that make it shoot faster. It's always someone with 30 rounds in his chamber, always with extended magazines or drum barrels.
Exactly.
Like, this isn't like 1920s St. Valentine's Day's massacre when you can, when what was it, Capone, I guess, was involved with that, the St. Valentine's Day massacre. You can go around with a Tommy gun and have a 30 or 40 round, 50 round drum magazine attached to your weapon. I mean, this is the type of stuff that they want.
It's nuts, man. And what concerns me, even in the midst of all this, other than the obvious, is that now, the NRA has been making this tiny, small concession that it might be willing to have additional regulation over these kind of these bump stocks or bumper stocks, whatever they're calling them, that allows a semi-automatic weapon to fire as an automatic, right? And they're getting all this praise now in the media, like, oh, the NRA is finally, okay, they're going to allow it. Like, the fact that we're asking the question, what does the NRA allow as a limit of our politics, is disgusting to me. It's absolutely disgusting. And
then one of the things that also came up this week was the Hearing Protection Act of 2017.
PA's rational solution to the problem.
No. This wasn't Pennsylvania. These were 7 Pennsylvania Republicans. Congressmen who signed on to this. So Barletta, Marino, Smucker, Perry, and a few others, Glenn Thompson and a couple of others out there signed on to this bill in Congress, and basically it would legalize. It would take like the tax, the $200 like aftermarket tax you have to pay for a silencer, making it considerably more affordable for people to buy these silencers, because this is tax. If you want to get it, you have to pay it like an extra $200 or $300 to get a silencer. And this bill, so if you're listening to Majority Report this week, this bill was supposed to come up for a vote the week Steve Scalise got shot and got pushed off. And it was supposed to come up for a vote again this week. Didn't. And Paul Ryan's like, this bill is definitely off the table now. It would basically make it a lot easier for people to buy silencers, which, like, I mean, if you watch the videos of what happened, the guy's shooting from the 32nd floor, and they run because they hear the gun, right? And some asshole on our Facebook page decided to, blah, 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 technically makes it 20% less, so it's not really that silent. Yeah, but what's the threshold there where I don't get this asshole's logic, but
it's insane.
Okay, so it's 20% less, right? So let's just put this in theory. It makes that 20% less, suppresses it by 20%, the noise coming out of it and stuff like this. Okay, so that happens. And the person, so now you can't hear the guns going off because the amplifiers and the speakers, and people just start dropping dead around you.
No, right. You're like, oh, that person must be taking a nap, right? Because I have no idea why they just fell to the ground, right? I mean, that would be it, right? That's exactly it. But here's the thing. People like that drive me insane, right? People like that who want to start getting into the minutia of the technical specifications of something like a silencer or a suppressor, right? Whatever the heck you want to call them, right? And show that they know more about the guns than you do. All that is about is sucking all the oxygen out of the conversation so that you're not talking about what the issue is, right? You watch this happen all the time, all over social media, and it happens on like cable news too as well. You get these people that come on and they start just talking about specs, right? And then suddenly the conversation is about specs. And then there's arguments over who knows more, and you don't know what you're talking about, and all, quoting. It's just, it's insane to me.
It's a way of a conversation I have with my lens. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my camera lenses I want to buy and stuff like this. Oh, do I want to go for the 70 to 200 4 or the 70 to 200 2.8? Which one?
No, right, exactly. But the thing is that when you're having that conversation, right, you're just making my eyes gloss. You're just making my eyes gloss over. You're not kind of threatening people's lives.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that to you with my space talk, but the consequences are not people dead in the streets. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah. But that's the type of conversations they think that they're having with this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
I think we should allow everyone to have like those mini nukes that they were testing out back in the 60s. Like you know what I mean? Like you just like launch a little nuclear missile off of your like off of a fucking rocket launcher.
No, I do think we're slowly descending into this like dark comic world, right? I mean, it's just like we've broken some sort of barrier and there's no coming back. And this
it's like
is
007, like with the old 007 games with the grenade launchers. Boom. Boom,
no, exactly. This is where we're at, but it's real now.
I can have whatever I want.
No, oh man, it's crazy. Well, no, don't think about it. But just to underscore that, I mean, you saw what happened in Puerto Rico this week. I mean, Trump goes down there to Puerto Rico after dragging and kicking out there.
Got to go out into the middle of the island that's surrounded by water, big water, big water, ocean water.
Right? He's forced to go down there, and it's just it makes a mockery of what like a president should do, or any human being should do. I mean, when I saw the pictures of him like doing tossing like jump shot tossing paper towels to the crowd, he's like, "Hey, everybody over here, wave your hand. You want a towel? Oh, here you go." And he's tossing them out there, and he's so proud of himself by the way he's doing it too. And
it only took him 14 days to get down.
I know, to the point where there's like simmering rage, right? That there's been such a lack of action and people are dying, right? And he comes down there and basically says, "Well, I want to remind you that there was Katrina. That was a real disaster, not this little disaster. How many people died here? 16,000 died in Katrina, right? I mean, just like minimizing what's going on there." Then basically throwing their debt in their face, be saying, "You guys have caused us a lot of problems, right? Your debt has thrown us, all out of whack. Ask Mick Mulvaney, he's right over there." The response by some in the media, "Oh, well, he's making light of a really bad situation down there by tossing the." I mean,
your face right there was cool.
Well, I mean, but like seriously, but at some point words fail.
That's what we've been reduced to with this person. Well, he's making light of the fact of a really bad situation by tossing, brawny paper rolls of brawny into the crowd.
It's like,
he's trying to have some fun. He's trying to soften it up a little bit.
In that instance, right, that are just the commentators. Those are only the commentators' wishes or what they're putting on that. if you look at what's happening, he's having fun. It's fun for him. Right? That's what that's about. He's like, he's a little kid. Oh my God, look, I'm throwing. Oh my God, it's like a concert. It's like I'm on a stage up here. Look at them. They're diving. I bet you can make that one over there dive
It's
for
like
the paper towel.
who is the Roman emperor that was famous for going on top of the Pantheon and just throwing gold coins off the top of the Pantheon and making it rain and watching like people fight over these gold coins?
That's what it's like. That's what it's like. I mean, it's exactly what it. Look at him go! Oh my God! Look, they're killing each other over paper towels. Oh, this is fun. I mean, that's really what he's like. I mean, did you see when he had that exchange with the woman who's trying to explain to him about these little tablets that you put in water to make it safe to drink? Did you see that part?
I did not.
Oh my God! So there's this exchange back and forth. He's handing out these packets, and he's kind of like, oh, "What are these?" to like this woman, right? He doesn't know what these packets with these tablets in it, and she's like, "Oh, these tablets, you put we have no clean water. So this dirty water. You put the tablet in there and you wait. I mean, however, like a minute or something like this, and you can drink it. It's safe to drink." And he's like, "You mean you put this in dirty water and then you drink it?" He's like, "Would you drink it?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, and you can see it on his face. It's like, "That's disgusting. I've never drank that." You know, it's like they don't have any drinking water. I mean, like it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just the look on his face was like, "Oh my God, you people disgust me." You know, I mean that is like what was going on. His face is like, it was unbelievable. And then there's like this one glimmer of hope, right? That it echoes. When he's got those moments when he wants to be like the populist and all that kind of stuff and make people happy. So he's leaving. He's getting ready to go back home, and he's got this. Being interviewed by some journalist, and she asks about the debt. And he's like, "Oh yeah, well, no, it was Geraldo Rivera. It was actually Geraldo Rivera." And it basically says, "Hey, well, what's going to happen is like a lot of your friends on Wall Street are not going to be necessarily happy. I don't know, Goldman Sachs, whoever it is, they got all this debt. And say we're going to have to get rid of that. That's we're going to have to wipe that out." So he basically says, we're going to get rid of the debt, right? And there's like, he's and Mick Mulvaney is kind of like behind him, like practically fainting.
No.
Right? No. And he's like, "Never mind, move along. Nothing to see here. President needs a nap." Oh my God, it was awful. It was.
I mean, like really, like what this is going to do. This is going to turn Puerto Rico into the ultimate tourist destination at this point. For rich people, like
for profiteers.
For profiteers. I mean, they're going to. Oh man. So on Twitter, there's this person who I troll sometimes. She works for the Commonwealth Foundation. She is Puerto Rican. She has family in Puerto Rico, and she's a very big like education profiteer. That's basically what her realm is.
Right.
So I was just like watching her tweets. I didn't want to like jump in on this, but like I was watching this tweet. She's like, the free market's really going to have to be the only thing to save this. And she's like a libertarian, and I felt like saying China's like, here it is. There it is. It's only been 2 weeks since the hurricane, but now we're like in that mood. It's like, okay, it's time to
there it is. There it is. I mean, no.
Like, I felt like saying I was waiting for you. I felt like tweeting. I was like, I was waiting for you to say that, we have to privatize the utilities, privatize the electric system, privatize the water system, and just privatize the roads and everything else, because this is like ultimate shock doctrine that's going to be going on here, and it's.
Exactly. We should just turn back to her and say
one big resort island after this.
It's going to be like Cuba before Castro. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be I mean, right now, with the exception that it's a U.S. territory, that it's just going to be the playground of dark money, of experimentation. I mean, you said this last week. It's going to be like a laboratory for shock doctrine troops down there. I mean, it's
what can we apply back home? It's going to be what Iraq was after the war.
Exactly.
When it came to like police state issues and stuff like that.
No, I mean, I see that's where it's going. It's bad. It's bad. And speaking of bad, we've got the Supreme Court season is underway, and it looks like we've got two things. One, there's a bunch of cases that are going to impact workers, right? One is a case that oral arguments were just heard on this, I guess, which was about whether or not these forced arbitration clauses are legal, right, are allowable under the Constitution, where in order to work someplace or in order to kind of like have a service, you have to kind of waive your rights to ever sue the company, that you have to basically go to the company's arbiter. So that one's going to roll forth. But the one that's really coming down that has the potential to really gut unions, public sector unions in particular, has got this one that's Janus versus AFSCME. If you remember, this is basically a repeat performance of Friedrichs. Friedrichs was the case that was basically going after what's called agencies fees or fair use or fair share fees, right? Fair share fees. And so basically what those are is like, if you're a union, if you're kind of negotiating, if you're a union that represents, workers in a particular workplace, you're bargaining for all the workers there, right? You're bargaining for everybody, so that whether or not you're a member of the union or not, you get the benefit of the contract. So all the higher wages, all the health care, all the provisions that the union bargains for, you get the benefit of it. Even if you hate like unions, right? It doesn't matter because you're covered under that contract. So what agency fee and fair share are basically they're saying you have to, since you're here, you don't have to join the union, that's fine. But you actually have to reimburse us for the cost of negotiations and kind of upholding the contract, right? Defending the contract, right? So that, if a contract is violated and an employer violates a contract, even against a non-union employer, right? The union is going to defend that contract and is going to defend your rights underneath that. So that's the idea. So you don't pay like full union dues, but you pay a fair share, right? To reimburse those costs for negotiation and keeping the contract going. So that's what's being questioned here. What we see in right to work states, basically saying it's essentially the same thing. I mean, it's basically saying, you don't have to join the union, you don't have to pay anything, but you still get the benefits of that contract. All right. The Koch brothers, when Friedrichs was moving forward last year, the Koch brothers started funding campaigns, not just the Koch brothers, but they were kind of a big funder behind it, called Give Yourself a Raise. And they were actually sending stuff to public sector unions, encouraging them, right, to leave their union membership, because then they'd have that money in their pocket. They wouldn't lose any of their benefits. They wouldn't lose any of their pay, but they would have extra money in their pocket, right? And isn't that great? Well, really, the effect of that is to defund the union, and that's really what this is all about. I mean, this is like union busting on a national scale. It's right to work on steroids is moving forward. Now, the only reason that Friedrichs wasn't passed last time, like why the Supreme Court didn't kind of uphold Friedrichs, was because Scalia died, right? And it was fully expected, right, that they're done. Right, this is going through, and that unions were basically bracing, especially public sector unions were bracing to lose, anywhere between 40 to 60% of their membership, like that.
And this is whatchamacallit. This is all. I mean, we are here at this point because of the Democratic Party and their inability to play politics.
Well, we're here for the because of the Democrat. Yes, exactly.
I mean, like, again, this all boils down to Hillary Clinton was a shitty candidate. She was uninspiring. She couldn't get out. All her campaign focused on was, I'm not Trump, right? Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid basically doing nothing, putting a message out. Pelosi doing nothing, not putting a message out, and just sitting there and taking the Republicans' bullshit for over a year by not confirming or not even having a hearing on Neil Gorsuch. And politics is theater, and what Democrats do, I guess we can't have this hearing now. Instead of having actual Senate hearings with the Democratic members of the Judiciary Committee or with Democrats within the caucus, having a caucus hearing on Gorsuch and making that public and making this a point and driving it out there.
No, I agree, but look. So there's a lot. Yes, you're absolutely right. There's a lot that is on the backs of Democrats, right? But there's a lot of folks that are back. This shows you that the left, how immature I don't mean that in terms of like people, individuals. I mean that like our political organization, maybe immature is the wrong word, but undeveloped, I should say. That's probably a better word for it. Undeveloped and unsophisticated our political ideology is on the left, right? Because the very fact is like, there so much energy was put into like Hillary sucks and Bernie's stealing this and all that other kind of garbage back and forth. So much energy was put in that when, there was some just baseline, and you've said this multiple times on the show, right? That there's some baseline things that the reason that you voted for Hillary Clinton, regardless, no matter how much you couldn't stand her. And this is one of the reasons, right? So the consequence of basically, thinking in short term and not terms of long term implications, this is one of those implications, right? There's the idea that, basically public sector unions are going to be, fundamentally defunded. And I don't see any way around it. I don't see any way out of that at this point.
Yeah. Also,
that is
you could have overturned Citizens United.
That's right.
Would have won.
Right. That's
maybe not, possibly. And also, the next thing up here, gerrymandering.
Yep. Yeah. No, exactly. But before we get to the gerrymandering thing, let me just say this one thing too as well, because I also don't want to let the unions themselves off the hook here too as well, because part of what needed to happen, right? Part of also what happened. This is a resistance within the institutions, right? I mean, there's been really, really good people that are pushing hard inside unions to basically want their unions to become more active, more in your streets, getting back to some
educated.
of the more educated and getting back to some of the militant roots, which is how you organize yourself for power. And they've fallen on their heels back to basically saying they could play some sort of inside game, right? We've been outmaneuvered and outmoved, and now it's going to have to be all hands on deck, right? For any union that kind of wants to to stay in the game, it's going to have to organize their members nonstop. And so now all those resources that they spent kind of like having freaking dinners with politicians, right, or supporting crappy candidates, right, are now going to have to go all into organizing full step. And you know what's happening? Here's the crazy thing about it, Sean, is that I hear this over and over again from friends of mine across the country right now when they're looking at this case, is that what's happening for a lot of public sector unions, instead of kind of going all in on organizing, instead of putting extra resources in organizing because they see what's going down, what they're doing is they're pulling back because they're worried, oh my God, we're going to take a huge hit, so we got to save our money. They're basically using an austerity logic inside thing when they need to be spending it on organizing right now. That is the only thing that is going to save public sector unions in this country. Otherwise, we're just going to have to take, a century back and build it back up again. That's the only other way around it.
Yeah, I know. There are state unions in Pennsylvania that have a lot of members who voted for Trump, like 50, 55, 60% of their members voted for Trump. And you know what? This is a direct failure on them. This is a direct failure on their part. Some of the SEIU unions or AFSCME, a lot of people who play in the inside game. I mean, you're standing in front of a moving train at this point, and you're going to get ran over.
No,
you're going to be able to do nothing to stop it.
No, that's absolutely right. And I think so. And now go back to where you're kind of making the move for is that there is a case going forward on gerrymandering. It's a case. It's called Gill versus Whitford, and it's based on this case out of Wisconsin. Wisconsin had such an absolutely insane gerrymander during its last election that just basically threw the entire election. That even though, let me see if I can pull this up here. Here, let me give you an example. This is from John Nichols, writing in The Nation. Here's the case. So in Wisconsin, this is quoting from his article in The Nation. In Wisconsin, in the 2012 election that followed the Republican reworking of legislative district lines, Democrat Barack Obama easily won the statewide presidential race. Democrat Tammy Baldwin easily won the statewide U.S. Senate race, and Democratic candidates easily secured the majority of votes cast in races for legislative seats. Statewide, Democratic contenders for the Wisconsin Assembly won 174,000 more votes than Republicans. Yet Republicans came away from the election with a 60-39 majority in the chamber. Extreme gerrymandering allowed a party that attracted just 46% of the vote for assembly seats to claim more than 60% of the seats. Right? That's what's at stake here. Right? So that gerrymandering is going through, and there was a case that was several years back. I want to say 17 years, but I don't know if it was that far. But something like 17 years ago, I think, where the justices, and several of them who are sitting on the court still right now, the justices were basically they were not opposed, or let me put it this way. They seem to be saying that, look, partisan gerrymandering, right? Gerrymandering just to keep particular parties in power is not constitutional. The issue was, how do you measure that, right? How do you actually get a measurement? And Kennedy, which is always, he's always this kind of swing vote, basically said, look, I agree with you that this should not be constitutional. But until we have a measure, we can measure like the effect of this, then I can't do that. So basically, since that court case came down, people have been working on this, and there's 3 models, like people like at MIT and things like this, coming up with kind of mathematical models to determine the degree of partisan gerrymandering in any given state. Right. So now they're basically saying, okay, Kennedy, you said that if we had a test that we could make, that we could determine this. Well, okay, we went out to work, and now we have 3 tests. Right. Choose. So that's going past. And now apparently, according to court reporters who have been kind of following this in the case, when the oral arguments were heard on this case on Tuesday, I think, the justice seemed fairly receptive to this. And Kennedy was openly hostile to the lawyer who was attempting, trying to prevent the court for ruling, trying to uphold partisan gerrymandering, right? So he was going after Kennedy was going after that, and look, I'm not a court watcher, but court watchers had said that is kind of that's typical kind of the gimme from Kennedy when he goes after a particular lawyer. That generally tells you that he's leaning in the other way. So that's a potential good news, right? And they're pushing these court cases. Well, especially this actually would put this in place ahead of the 2018 election cycle. If this does not, if the court refuses to rule, right, or rules in the other way, basically people are saying that basically what we're looking at is that we're looking at Republican control, the majority of the Senate and the House, right, and many, if not most, of the already Republican-leading state houses and state legislatures for the next 2 election cycles at least.
Yeah, this is the only thing that will moderate our politics.
No, that's right.
You have, and it's not just like, it'll moderate our politics by keeping more moderate Republicans in office because they're not getting faced from a challenge getting flanked from the right. I mean, yeah, it's like gerrymandering is the only thing. Dale Leach was down there at the thing. He posted pictures of him standing in line at the Supreme Court like 5 o'clock in the morning. But this is the issue he's made for years now. Like he's been since 2014, 2013, like the first progressive summit we went to out in Harrisburg. This is one of the issues he's been making.
That's right.
He's been consistent on this issue for a while.
No, and I think, we talked about this on the show kind of like when this first came out. There's this great book out there by David Daly. It's called Rat Effed, or Rat Fucked. I mean, it's really what it is. Sorry, Seth. And it's called The True Story Behind the Secret Plan to Steal America's Democracy. It's actually the title of the book, Seth, so don't get mad at me for that, all right? Because he's sitting there having a hissy fit right now. So right now,
he's gonna message us real soon.
Yeah, exactly. So the true story behind a secret plan to steal America's democracy. And David Daly did some of the best reporting on this in this book, charts how this actually happened and what you should know. And what listeners to the show, especially with those folks who are here in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania plays a central role in this story. So check that book out too as well. I'll try to remember to put a link in the show notes on that one because it has had a huge impact upon the shape of our politics and what we think is possible. So crazy, man. Crazy. So last thing I just want to kind of put on the table again too as well. I mean, amidst just an absolute horrible week in just a horror, in horror really week with whatever happened in Las Vegas, the inhuman show down in Puerto Rico by our president, and the kind of the ongoing just devastation and loss of life that is happening in Puerto Rico because of the mismanagement of the response to the devastation from Hurricane Maria. Let's not lose our attention so much to forget that there's another hurricane that is now brewing in the Gulf. It's Hurricane Nate. It's a tropical storm right now, but it's expected to hit some of the warmest waters of the Gulf and intensify and land somewhere in the panhandle of Florida to over in by New Orleans. And 22 people have already died in Mexico as a result of this. Just the tropical storm. So again, it's not of the doesn't have the size and the sheer power of something like Maria and all that stuff, but it is nonetheless going to have yet another impact. This is our climate future, folks. Crazy, man. Crazy. Well, when we come back, when we'll gather ourselves a little bit, maybe have a cup of coffee, cheer ourselves up a little bit, and then we'll come back after this, and we're going to get into some stuff that's happening right here in Pennsylvania. But until then, thanks for keeping with us. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. I want to remind you, if you can, become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Just go to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the support and membership tab. And then you just click, become a member and you're on your way. We need your support, folks. We're ramping things up. We're bringing on some more people, which I'm going to talk about in the next segment. We're going to welcome aboard. We've got 2 new writers that are coming aboard. I'm very psyched to hear about, very excited for you to hear about. But we'll talk about that after the break. Again, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be right back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1917. That was the day civil rights leader Fannie Lou Hamer was born in Montgomery County, Mississippi. She was the youngest of 20 children. Her parents were sharecroppers, and she began working in the fields at the age of 6. By the age of 12, Fannie had to drop out of school to sharecrop to meet the needs of her family. Marrying in 1944, she and her husband continued to work as sharecroppers on a plantation near Ruleville. After decades of abject poverty and Southern political repression, Fannie Lou Hamer joined up with voter registration activists in 1962. When she and 17 others traveled to Indianola to register, Fannie was fired from her job and driven from the plantation she had worked at for decades. She began working with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and played a central role in organizing Freedom Summer. In a short time, Fannie was repeatedly arrested, beaten, and shot at for her activism. She suffered kidney damage after police beat her near to death in a Winona, Mississippi jail as she traveled home from a literacy workshop. By 1964, she helped to found the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, which challenged the all-white delegation to the Democratic Convention. President Lyndon Johnson was so threatened by live testimony she was giving before the convention's Credential Committee that he organized an emergency press conference to preempt the broadcast. When the committee attempted a backroom deal to seat just 2 MFDP delegates with no voting rights, Hamer and other delegates left in disgust. Hamer continued her activism, but her life was tragically cut short in 1977 from hypertension and breast cancer. She was just 59. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. So before we get into things too much here in this segment, I want to give a shout out to some of our two of our new writers. First of all, we've got Spencer Potts. Spencer Potts is actually, he's a student down at Arcadia University. He's actually joining us as a second Raging Chicken Fellow. He just recently brought aboard, so look for his stuff coming out very soon. And then we have a new contributing writer, which I'm so freaking psyched about. Vanessa Baker is kind of joining us. She's had a great piece on Krasner's victory down in Philadelphia that was written up in N+1 She's got some great stuff. She's working on a story right now. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not even going to tease her, but just look out for her story. She's going to be bringing it, no doubt, in the pages of Raging Chicken Press. So welcome aboard, Vanessa. Welcome aboard, Spencer. And I want to remind you, look, this is why we started our membership campaign to begin with, is that we want to be able to kind of bring on new writers. We want to be able to support our writers, and we want to kind of build out what we're doing here. So they are coming aboard thanks to those folks who have stepped up to the plate and become members of Raging Chicken Press. Really, I can't thank all of you enough. Your support has meant so much. And right now, it's more important now than ever, especially you may have seen, I talked about this on a Facebook Live last week, was that we had to upgrade our server space just recently. And we kept on basically tanking, or kind of exceeding our limits every single month. And so finally I had to kind of bite the bullet and kind of like expand our server space. And all the thanks in the world to the folks at Flywheel who have been great. We're kind of making sure that even though we exceeded our limits, making sure that our site has stayed up and everything, that's meant a world to me, and which is why I'm going to double down and stick with them. But it is going to be an increased cost to make sure that we have enough server enough bandwidth to keep Raging Chicken going strong. So we really could use the help, folks. So ragingchickenpress.org, support and membership tab. There you can contribute right there. So, all right. So one thing another thank you out. This goes a huge thank you out to our Raging Chicken readers. You remember that I've been following the story about an adjunct faculty member at Kutztown University who was basically kicked to the curb by the administration and the state system of higher education because they got sick, right, in the second or third week of the semester and required life-saving surgery. So the university and the university administrators decided, along with the chancellor's office of the state system of higher education, that the only thing that they could do is fire this person, right, thereby kicking them off of health insurance and taking away their income when they were going to be kind of, having to recover from a really serious surgery. The good news is that the person has gone through surgery now, and from what I understand, the surgery went well, so that's a good thing. And with the help of the union and with the help of the story that we published here in Raging Chicken Press, we've been able to raise over $5,000 for that adjunct faculty member. And that will basically ensure, I believe the numbers are right, at least 4 months of COBRA. Which will make sure that their health insurance, as they have it, is going to kind of keep going, and it will maybe like a month or a month and a half or 2 months of rent will also be covered. So that's huge, and thank you, because I know we look at our stats on this, and over 500 readers of Raging Chicken Press kind of went to the document that showed you how you can contribute to help out this adjunct faculty member who was kind of thrown out of a job right ahead of life-saving surgery. And unconscionable actions on the part of both the Kutztown University administration and the state system of higher education. But you all showed what it means to be part of a caring community and to act in solidarity. So thank you. We're in your debt. So, Sean, here we're at it, man. So, that's the good news. The bad news is that there might not be a state system of higher education around for too much longer if the Pennsylvania can't get itself a budget.
Well, not the state system, but the state relateds might be forced to privatize.
No, but look, state relateds go first. State system goes next. I mean, that's how it goes. I mean, it's like it's like dominoes crashing, man.
Yeah, and this is like. This is the House Republicans and Mike Terzai not willing to get their shit together and their house in order. They're what else can I say?
I know it's astonishing. So
this really falls in the back of like one person, and that's Mike Terzai not willing to be able to get the caucus in order, and he allows his own Freedom Caucus members to pretty much run the party. I mean, you have these knuckle draggers like. Stephen Bloom and Seth Grove running the things, and this is who they choose to follow.
That's right.
Daryl Metcalf.
Daryl Metcalf just comes in with the right-wing racist part. But like the dumbasses that they choose to follow are people like Seth Grove, Kristen Hill, Stephen Bloom, and all these people who have been given gifts from ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, over the past few years since they've been in office, pretty much. I mean, these are the stooges that the Commonwealth Foundation puts out there, and pretty much this is who they allow to run the party. This is who's running the show, folks. It's not Mike Terzai. It's these fucking idiots.
Poor Mike Terzai.
I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can.
But I mean,
no, but he's one of them, though, right? Let's be clear. He's the guy who was, he's one of them. So there's no victimization here of Mike Terzai. Mike Terzai is a willful leader of that caucus of crazy.
Yeah, and he allows them to do whatever they want. This is why you have people like John Taylor resigning. This is why you have moderate Republicans not standing up for re-election. People who actually could get stuff done. I mean, yeah, sure, Bill Adolph wasn't the best person in the world. He's old, gangly looking thing that had creature had 1 foot in the box, but he was a Republican that could get stuff done.
Don't mince your words, Sean. Oh, but man, well, yeah. I mean,
and now you have someone like Stan Saylor, Pinky, running the show, which he's a conservative nutbag. I mean, you've watched these committees, right, on within the General Assembly, go from moderate southeastern Pennsylvania, a little bit more conservative Republicans, given control over to these freaking nutbags as your southeastern Republicans who've been in office for 30 years, 40 years start to resign. One thing that's happened this week, Stuart Greenleaf, looks like he's going to be resigning at the end of the year. He's been in office since 1905. I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, he's pretty much the crypt keeper in the Senate,
right?
And he's pretty much going to will this seat down to his son, Stuart Greenleaf Jr., which is a tradition in the Senate. You will your seat off to your next of kin.
Well, Sean, that's so you just don't have to change the stationery. It's actually a cost-saving measure.
But it looks like probably Stuart Greenleaf Jr. is going to get it. But, what's going to happen to the Senate Judiciary Committee? Someone from bumfuck Pennsylvania is going to pick it up. And then you get stuff like Mike Regan's bill going after protesters, Scott Martin's bill going after protesters, making it through and getting into the actual Senate floor where anything can happen.
No, that's true. And here's the thing.
I mean, I'm sorry for being so cynical right now and laughing.
No, I hear you.
This is the state of the politics in the Republican Party in Pennsylvania. The moderate Republicans are resigning, and the committees that these moderates once held had kept people in check are now being handed over to the conservatives who've taken over the party since 2010, and most of them are from central Pennsylvania, where Democrats once held, or moderate Republicans once held footing.
No, that's right. And, I think that, look, I still am astonished that we don't have national writers that are kind of focusing on Pennsylvania as a key story. And I think
we're just as nuts as Wisconsin.
Right, and I think it's I think there's just too many crazy moving pieces that people can't get their heads around, or maybe it's just the legacy of because Pennsylvania for the longest time has been this this key state. It used to be strongly blue, but it's also been a kind of critical state. It's had a mix of urban and rural, and all this kind of, so it has a particular weight when people think about electoral politics. It's
nationally. Almost like New York State, almost pretty much like a very large state. It has a couple of large urban settings, but most of it's rural.
Right. Except I always say this when people say about what the difference in New York is that the one difference with New York is that Pennsylvania really, the way that it concentrates its politics, right, is the Democrats have just let go on everything but Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Right. I mean, they really have. I mean, they just have given up on it. I mean, the thing is in New York is that you still have a certain kind of democratic machine. Right. And you have strongholds in, so, for example, you have yes, you have New York City, obviously, right, the biggest city in the country. But then you've got Albany. And if you follow the New York State Thruway, Route 90, Interstate 90 there, is that you go Albany, and then you have a whole bunch of kind of smaller industrial towns like Amsterdam, Schenectady, Herkimer. And then you go to my hometown where I grew up in Utica, New York. And Utica, New York's when I grew up, it was around 100,000. Now it's probably closer to 85,000 or so people. Then you get to Syracuse, right? That's an hour away from there, and that's about 360,000 people. Then you go to Rochester, which is also 200,000 plus. And then you get to Buffalo, which is another big city on the other side. So you've got some concentrated cities in a different way than you do in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, you really have big cities and then lots of smaller cities around that don't have the kind of infrastructure as because, they were so dependent on coal and BART, and that's, so there's a little bit of a different dynamic there, but there is, New York is a very rural space. And there's lots of conservatism there, but it doesn't have the same kind of feel for me in some ways, in part because, there still seems to be, and maybe it's just a matter of having, that you've had a Democratic governor for a long time there, and that New York City does have a disproportionate weight on the politics. So I don't know, but here it just seems like the Democratic Party just doesn't know what it's doing. Like in terms of organizing and thinking about building kind of an infrastructure and so on. And again,
a lot of these seats that were given up in 2010 with the gerrymandering that was going on, or not even gerrymandering at that point, with the wave election in 2010 that led to the gerrymandering in 2012, 14, and 16. These were a lot of these seats were held by Democrats for 20, 30 years.
Right.
Like these were held by generations of Democrats, pretty much.
It's a good point.
And they've just given up on them, probably because they never had to campaign in their lifetime. And like, oh, I'm just going to get reelected. And when they have an actual challenger, they just get steamrolled.
Yep. No, exactly. So I don't know, but so here we sit without a budget. And Governor Wolf basically coming out this week and saying, look, he's sick of playing games. This was after it looked like they were on the verge of actually having an agreement. They were going to have this 5% hotel tax which is, again, not a great solution.
Stupid.
Well, right, exactly. But and it's not a good solution, right? But it was new revenue, right? That was actually going to help with the budget.
You're putting your budget on the backs of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh tourism markets.
No, exactly. No, that's true. That's exactly what it was. There's no doubt about it.
Instead of there's a finite resource, I don't know, taking up 3/4 of the state.
No, well, exactly. No, but that was the other part, right? Then they said, well, you have the severance tax, right? You've got a severance tax, and that was the other thing that there was initially some agreement on, right? And even Senate Republicans, right, in this state have been on board, right? And remember, let's say this is all things that the budget that had been passed. Right. So let's be clear. This is not new negotiations. Right. These are things that agreements that were already made that's in the budget that was passed without a revenue package. Right. We all remember. And we talked about this then, Sean. Right. And you were dead on about it. Right. It was like, here's what's going to happen. They're going to pass this thing. There's no revenue whatsoever with this budget. So it's just a wish list so that they can all go home. Right. For vacation. Right.
For the summer.
For the rest of the summer, right, and say, look, we passed the budget, right, to go back to their, the hometown crowds, and we passed the budget, we're all this kind of stuff, we did it on time, but there was no revenue package, and they were going to come back and do this. And you said, yeah, we're not going to get, the earliest we're going to get any kind of budget is going to be September, but probably later than that, right? So we were, yeah, maybe October we'll start seeing something here, and here we are. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's still going on.
It's still going on. And then, when we're kind of alluding to at the beginning of this segment is that, one of the part of the budget negotiations, part of the funding there was for the state related universities. So that's Penn State University, Pitt, Lincoln, and Temple. Right. Basically, they receive money from the state. They're not state universities. They receive money for the state as primarily for tuition subsidies, but also from some of their kind of different programs and things like for agricultural research and so on.
Stuff you want to fund as a state, stuff as a state that you should be funding,
exactly.
What's happening with our weather, what's happening with our climate, what's happening with the farming in the state, stuff that, you want to fund, it's almost like funding research and development. It's R&D funding at this point.
No, right, exactly. And that's, that is left on the table, but without any revenue, right, those folks are basically maybe in the situation where they're not going to receive any public funds. So essentially, by default, privatizing those universities, right, and basically saying, look, you're on your own. And it's going
to be really interesting to see when the Penn State, Temple, Pitt, and Lincoln are big schools. But it's going to be interesting to see the Penn State alumni network get involved with this, because if you're a parent who went to Penn State and your kid goes to Penn State, and you're looking at their tuition going from $17,000 to $30,000 a year, just tuition alone.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure at that point, you are putting higher education extremely far out of reach for a lot of people at this point. and you're like, my kid's not going to be able to have that opportunity because you can't get a budget done.
Yep.
You know, like I had that. Like this is where I think that, like, you know, you look at Senator Corman's video on the Penn Live article, which he like didn't look like pissed. He looked like not scared to say the word, but he was visibly upset.
He was
like,
concerned.
You know what I mean?
He was concerned and he was upset. Yeah, because that's his home.
And I guarantee you, people from Penn State are probably calling up Terzai's office saying, "What the hell are you doing right now?"
Exactly. I mean, imagine that. So if you're here,
I mean, this is a smart move on Wolf in my part too, in my opinion. All right, we're going to borrow against the state store. We're going to do what we need to do to manage the budget, but we can't fund the largest university in the state, largest university system in the state, and that's going to probably motivate them to get in line with not blaming the governor, but going after Terzai on this, saying, "What are you doing?"
Right. I think that's true. But there's also, Wolf even acknowledged this in his presser on this when he was kind of, he came out all pissed off and say, "Look, I'm done with this. I'm done with playing the games. I'm just going to manage this myself. Right. I'm going to do it because no one else is doing it. Right. No one's minding the store. These people are playing games. These Republicans are playing games. They don't want to have any revenue. So I'm going to do it myself. And so here's the steps I'm taking." And in that, he basically said, he's like, he was asked the question. He's like, how much this has to do with the fact that, the governor's race is kind of getting underway. Right. And he made a kind of like, dry joke. "Oh, there's a governor's race that's underway." Right. And he was pissed. You could see it on his face. And he's like, "Of course this is what's going on."
I know.
Right?
You had Wagner last week tell a crowd of people that, "Yeah, I sunk the severance tax in order for the governor's race." That's
right. So, I mean, there you have it, right? I mean, so on the one hand, yeah, there's going to be pressure from Penn State that's coming on, but let's review, shall we? So last week, we know that Steve Bannon threw his weight behind Wagner. Right? Let's just hear it again. Ready, guys?
You've been endorsed by Steve Bannon, and here's the headline from the Pennsylvania Dems. Right-wing Wagner endorsed by leader of America's alt-right movement, Steve Bannon.
I love it. The good news, Dom, the good news is they at least spelled my name right, and they spelled Steve Bannon's name right.
One big freaking joke, right? And that's it. So
he's shitposting.
There you go. Right. And that's so you've got Wagner like being supported by Bannon. Right. And that whole infrastructure, and that gets him Mercer money. Right. Mercer money, like the billionaires that basically fund Breitbart and that whole kind of alt-right infrastructure over there. Right. That basically taps into Mercer money for Wagner. And then the other side of things, you got Mango. Right. With the whole kind of like Pennsylvania Trump infrastructure raring to go. So that's going to bring a whole other set of money into this play. And neither one of those groups has any interest whatsoever in cooperating with someone like Tom Wolf. Right? So, I mean, that's all going to play itself out.
Mango is really like an outsider in all of this. Mango has no influence in what the legislature is doing right now. This is all Wagner driven.
No. Absolutely. I'm not talking about that, though, right? So basically, where's the pressure come from, right? So if the pressure is going to come from – so Mango is not – like, for example, he's not going to say, "I'm going to come in there, we're going to solve the revenue package or things like this." No, we're going to let that stuff play out. Wagner's going to do the inside thing, inside the legislature, try to sink everything that he can, right? But there's no incentive from either one of the kind of Republican candidates that are in this, or those two, at least with the ones with the money, to help out in any way. Right, their goal is to hurt Wolf, right, which is bad for us.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Washington on the Susquehanna.
Washington, yeah, there you go, man. There you go. It's right here. It is right here. So, I mean, that's all stuff that's playing it out, and we should also remember that, Standard & Poor's at the end of September did downgrade Pennsylvania's credit rating. Wolf thought this deal with the hotel tax was going to be able to stave that off, but nope, forget it now. That's basically going to be a PA Republican-sponsored tax on us in the amount of $53 million per year in increased interest payments because of their ineptitude and ideological crap. Right? So thank your local PA Republican representative or senator for that, because that is coming out of your pocket, people, right? And that's because of what they've done. So, we don't raise taxes. Nope. So they're just going to do it kind of in a different way, in a way that's actually going to hurt us all long term too as well. So blah. Crazy, man. Well, at least we'll get one less in Washington, at least, since Tim Murphy's hitting the trails.
Yeah. This was a great story that came out.
Yeah, I think so. Why don't you tell us?
So, Tim Murphy, I guess like back in January or something, Tim Murphy's Facebook people or communications people put up an article about he's supporting the Right to Life March, and a mistress of his comment, "Oh, yeah, sort of like how you you asked me to get an abortion." Like, put him on blast on Facebook, and this all unravels from there. This story comes out a couple days ago in the Post-Gazette, and basically Tim Murphy pressured Tim Murphy's mistress had a pregnancy scare, and he tried to pressure her into getting an abortion. Here, she wasn't pregnant, but those text messages get published. In my opinion, yes, that's the Republican thing to do. Like, it's conservative, changing their grounds once they're confronted with an issue, like always with the hypocritical Republicans.
Right.
But the thing that got glossed over the most in this story, I think, that really sunk him, Republicans could have dealt with that, right? Whatever. Like, okay, he's a hypocrite. No problem. We'll get him reelected. What my opinion, what really sunk him was his staff turnover. He had 100% staff turnover rate within the past year.
Yeah, he was. From what I understand, he wasn't your ideal boss.
No, there's reports. There's a big document dumped in the Post-Gazette on this. There was the second part of the story. Basically, there's some stories of him like throwing his folders, throwing documents off the table, and then yelling at his staff to pick them up and find the right documents, which they had trouble finding because they're all over the floor. Things like him driving on a highway in a torrential downpour and watching his iPad, watching YouTube on his iPad at the same time, and telling his staff members to shut up and get in the back seat if you don't like it. Stuff like that. And my opinion is that the House caucus knew about this for a while. I mean, if you went through 100 staffers in 10 years and you had 100% turnover rate, there's some serious stuff going on because these are all caucus employees. These aren't hired by the congressman. These are people, they probably got the job through the congressman, but they work for the House caucus, which maybe has like 1,000 people. You have all this stuff. You have 10 or 15 people living in that office within a year. Yep. That's going to be a really toxic environment, and everyone else is going to know your dirty laundry because staffers all probably talk to each other. Yeah, this guy's an asshole. Don't want to work for him.
No, and I think that the difference here too, as well, is that I think that Murphy pressuring his mistress, right? I mean, like, choose your hypocrisy, right? But pressuring his mistress to have an abortion, that is what broke this out in terms of like a national story, right? I mean, this is where it became, got the attention of kind of a broader sector, because in Politico's piece, right, it was a scathing, Politico's article scathing about this. This is kind of what they write about this. They said. So ironically, Murphy's swift collapse came not because of text messages he sent to a woman with whom he was having an extramarital affair, encouraging her to have an abortion, as first reported by the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on Tuesday. In fact, fears among senior Republicans about potential wave of negative stories on how Murphy ran his congressional office were what ultimately pushed him out the door. Multiple top House Republicans during the last 24 hours pressured Murphy to resign once it became clear the House Ethics Committee might have to investigate allegations tied to his reported mistreatment of staffers, right? And the title of that piece is Inside Tim Murphy's Reign of Terror. You have all this stuff kind of coming together. So, here, another another bad apple is going to kick to the curb, I guess.
Yep.
And so my guess is that the Democrats are organizing full throttle right in that district, right?
Oh, yeah, because there's going to be another special election coming up. I'm sure they'll find someone to lose 60-40 or 65-35.
Yeah, what's Honorado doing? He's from out that way. Just sorry, I couldn't help myself. He's still got those octagonal signs that he can use. Oh man. But yeah, so Tim Murphy's gone, and but in other kind of local news, it looks like we got blocked on Facebook this week too, huh, Sean?
Yeah, by Tom Marino.
Thanks to you.
It happens. I guess he didn't want to have the conversation on guns and silencers.
No, so just blocked it. Like, is it basically better? You know, he's got puts. Yeah, exactly. Hear no evil, see no evil. It was exactly it. Nice work on that, by the way. That was good. The other big story that we've been starting to track right now is that again, look, we've been covering what's been happening with the alt-right for a long time. We've been seeing college campuses being plastered by a kind of neo-fascist and kind of Nazi white supremacist propaganda, and we've been following that right along. And then last week, right, Identity Europa had a little coming out party in Lancaster.
Yeah, so they went to the Lancaster Fair, in Ephrata in Lancaster County, talking to people. They actually posted a podcast about this, which was pretty interesting. And then they held a banner drop in Penn Square at 10 o'clock at night, because when else is better do your little shit posting than that in that time of night. The trolls don't want to come out during the day.
Right.
But basically, the guy who we've been following, Evan McLaren, who worked in the Cumberland County District Attorney's Office as a law clerk, who is pretty much like a neo-Nazi, and pretty much is a neo-Nazi.
Yeah. Proud one too.
He's proud, and he's out and about it. I mean, but no, they held a banner drop and posted a video up on the Identity Europa Facebook page. And basically, they're calling the Syrian refugees a bunch of invaders into our streets, into our homes, and stuff like that. And Lancaster city has brought 20 times more Syrian invaders per capita than any other city in the United States. We say enough. The time is now. We respect our safe and clean cities, and they're here, and they won't be here for much longer. There's a couple things we can talk about this. One, this is pretty much the rhetoric that the far right, the far Republican party has been using for decades now.
Yep.
This is the rhetoric your Lou Barletta, your Darryl Metcalf, and others have been using. And this is the rhetoric that they're trying to use to go after refugees and immigrants in Lancaster City.
Yeah, let's remember, and this is why this is an issue in Lancaster, is because they're, basically a part of a federal program, right, for refugee resettlement there in Lancaster. A place that
basically this has nothing to do with the mayor or the city politics.
Right, exactly. But this has, it does say something about the character, right? Because my hometown of Utica, New York, is also part of the same kind of program. So over the years, we've seen, for example, an influx of Vietnamese refugees and then Bosnian refugees. And they've, look at the impact that they've had on our city. It's been incredible, right? But and I mean in a positive way. I mean, initially, we had the same kind of crap that you're hearing right now, except not to this extreme. But the immigrants are coming kind of thing. But now you look at my hometown in Utica, the Bosnian community and the Vietnamese community, they do what immigrants do, right? They build infrastructure. They have, restaurants. They have stores, right? These areas of towns that were kind of dying off because people were leaving the area, they're building back up, right? I mean, that's been the spirit of this, what it means when you kind of welcome people in with open arms, right, as part of these programs. And, Lancaster was one of those. And, these people chose their target fairly carefully.
I know. It seems like definitely with the rhetoric they're using, they're definitely going after the Lancaster Stands Up group in this, which was started after the election, had a big coming out party pretty much in January after Trump had his Muslim ban, that they brought up over 2,000 people from supporting the Syrian and the other refugees in the area, the refugee communities from these countries. And this is the counter reaction to pretty much Lancaster Stands Up and the counter organizing that this is what they want to try to throttle.
Absolutely. And last night, Sean had sent me there's this link to this podcast that he mentioned, and this podcast, it's called Taking a Stand. And it was the first episode that came out. And it was an interview with Evan McLaren, right, the head of Identity Europa, who's a PA native. And there was also this other guy in there, let me find his name again, William Clark. And William Clark is the PA coordinator of Identity Europa. And the guy who runs this podcast had them both on to talk about what they just did in Lancaster, right? This was their launch for this podcast. And now, if you listen to that podcast, this is what people need to start paying attention to. I don't know what else we need to do here to kind of sound the alarm. But in that podcast, they talk about the planning and the strategy of what they were going to do. Originally, the action that they had in downtown Lancaster, right, was supposed to take place at the Ephrata Fair. They had these smoke grenades. That's what they called them on this podcast. These smoke grenades. They were going to stand up. They were going to assemble. They're going to and give their speeches, their alt-right speeches, and so on. Right and this is like after night had fallen. They had spent the whole day at the fair. Basically, found out that the Lancaster area Republicans were nowhere to be found at their table that they had set up. So they just went over and just basically took over the space and started talking white nationalism and alt-right stuff and all this kind of thing. In the podcast, they were even talking about their clothes, right? How they dress, how they present themselves, and so they're very carefully thinking about image. They're very carefully thinking about tone and rhetoric and kind of what they do and how they do it and how you recruit people and so on. And they talk about this stuff openly on this podcast, right? This is not the first time this has happened, right? I mean, this has been going on for a long time. This is what Sean has been continually reporting on. This is why we call attention to what's going on at the college campuses, because college campuses are some of their main targets. What this represents, what the Lancaster instance represents something different. This is essentially their coming out party, and they talked about it as much so, right? Even the host of this said, yeah, it's been fun playing troll online every once in a while, doing all that kind of stuff, but it's time to do on the ground or kind of in the streets activism, right? It's time to actually show up and start doing the organizing work to build the white nationalist movement here in PA. So it's coming, folks. Whether or not you're going to have your head in the sand or not, it's here.
And it's it's funny watching this unfold as Bannon endorses Wagner for governor. The father of the alt-right, or the modern who brought the alt-right into the mainstream via Breitbart. It's funny watching this happen. White nationalist propaganda rag, Breitbart, editor, executive, whatever, endorses Wagner, and then this starts to happen. Do I think they're working together? No, it's not. But this is something that it's going to be a problem for Wagner. It has to be made an issue for Wagner.
Well, it's only going to be it's only going to be a problem for Wagner if it's made an issue that people are kind of thinking that's the key. Because right now, I think Wagner is perfectly comfortable in that space, right? And things like the people that are going to turn out, like I think that's what he's betting on. The people that voted for him and that are his fans like the alt-right. Right? I mean, they like what he's got to say. They like the association with Bannon. We heard that, the interview on that radio show, Dom what's the guy's name? Giordano. I can never say that guy's name. But he's I'm I love it. I love it that the Democrats are pissed off that that Bannon endorsed me. I love Bannon. I embrace it. Right? I embrace the alt-right is basically what he's saying there. So he's not turning away from it. And the only way he's going to is if he's meant to pay a cost, right? And that's on us. That means paying attention to this, and that means Capitol reporters actually reporting on this stuff.
I don't expect columnists or opinion or bloggers like Mysick or others to really, they're not going to want to lose access to Scott Wagner. It's one thing, I can go after Donald Trump. I can call Donald Trump a fascist. I can call Donald Trump a racist. We can go after him on being endorsed by Bannon and playing to the alt-right. But we're not going to go after Scott Wagner on this, because what if Scott Wagner becomes governor? Penn Live's not going to have access to Scott Wagner's office if they go after Wagner on this. Yeah.
That's it. And that's the sad state of our affairs right now.
I mean, come on now. Like, Penn Live's not going to have access to Scott Wagner if they go after Wagner on embracing this racist who's endorsing him.
Well, maybe it's about time that they took their head out of the Harrisburg whatever,
the
Beltway, and started looking around and go, what's been the response to kind of some of the national media after Trump was there, right? I mean, you basically finally see these journalists, or media outlets, I say the journalists have, for the most part, especially print journalists, have been doing their job for a long time under bad conditions. But now they're basically, finding their stride again and what it actually means to be kind of adversarial press, right? An adversarial press that is, the job is to hold power accountable. Right now, as much as the cable news and everything really just wants to get back to normal real fast, so they don't have to feel uncomfortable. There's been some really good journalism that's going on, and lots of mea culpas about we should have been doing this for a while. Maybe, since that Pennsylvania is going to be this kind of battleground, and we're going to see the same dynamics play out, maybe journalists in this state, right, especially for established media outlets, right, people who get paid for it, not people like us who do this on the side, right, but people who get paid for this will actually do their jobs and actually hold these people accountable. They need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. So we're gonna keep on tracking some of this stuff, and I'd really like to hear people's perspectives on this too as well. People listen to the show. We've been, like I said, we've been following this stuff, what's happening with Identity Europa and elsewhere. Now you've got this this podcast that's going out, and I'm just curious your thoughts on how you think we should be responding to this stuff in our communities, right? To what degree, how should we be covering these folks, and how do we fight back, right, to ensure that they do not get a foothold more than they already have, because they already have it, but they not get too big of a foothold in Pennsylvania going forward. So I don't know. My hope goes into see what you see, and I want to close out the segment with Represent PA is also based out of Lancaster, right? So here you got the tale of two possibilities. And they're kind of like hooked up with some of the folks from the March on Harrisburg, which, Sean, you've covered these folks, and we're going to have March on Harrisburg 2s coming up. And Represent PA, based out of Lancaster, is basically has a call for action that on November 10th they're going to begin a march from Lancaster to Harrisburg for 2 days of action, and I would add direct action to on November 13th and 14th in the Capitol Rotunda. So we're going to, it's good to see this pressure being brought forward. And then November 4th, they're actually going to have a public forum in Lancaster where Michael Pollack, the head of the executive director for March on Harrisburg, is going to be out there kind of meeting with activists and community members and talking about, taking back our government, basically. They're saying we've got to stop the money in politics. We've got to stop the legalized corruption that is legal in Pennsylvania for people to, politicians to take gifts and bribes, basically, from corporations and from lobbyists and all this stuff. So, look forward to that.
Yeah, no, this should be fun again. They're going to start pressuring Metcalf a little bit with some of these committee hearings by handing him notes during the meetings. It's pretty much like ask for a meeting with them, talk to them, bring them these bills for a vote. And it seems like they're unwilling to do that. It's been pretty interesting seeing how some of the Democrats are reacting to this. Some of the Democrats don't want this direct action going on because they think it will only hurt their political will around these bills. It's amazing how they want to throw out this type of reaction.
Yep, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that. You just kind of occurred to me. I've been reading right now. I've been reading This Is an Uprising by Mark Engler and Paul Engler. And they talk about this as a kind of a long-term dynamic, long-term struggle about, these kind of the insiders, we're going to play this game in this particular way. And they want to keep the folks that want to kind of mobilize, want to do direct action, want to keep them at arm's length because they fear it's going to jeopardize their own kind of like incremental way of moving forward. But what Mark Engler and Paul Engler argue in this book is that, look, no, yes, you need people that are doing that kind of stuff, but these things are not in opposition. The matter of fact that, there's times when it calls for kind of a leap forward, right? That, that we have to kind of get together and have a mass movement that's going to put pressure, that's going to get us beyond get us to that next step, which incrementalism cannot do. It's the mass movement. It's the direct action. It's a nonviolent direct action, which is going to get the goods. So, I think that's where we need to go. So I'm very happy to see March on Harrisburg is those folks are not letting up.
Yep.
Crazy. All right, so we're going to come back just in a couple minutes with Les Cole. And we're going to talk some space news, a big space news week, and we're going to talk some beer news and hopefully leave you with a little bit of hope at the end of this day. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll be back right after this. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, hard-hitting investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight.
We will return American astronauts to the moon, not only to leave behind footprints and flags, but to build the foundation we need to send Americans to Mars and beyond.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Kev Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, is Out to Coop podcast. Let's go! And what you just heard there was the one, the only Vice President Mike Pence. Mike Pence was down in Virginia at a basically the relaunch of the National Space Council. It's something that was kind of shut down, I believe, under Obama, but it started back up. Pence is a huge space guy, right? And really is convinced that we need to go back to the moon, and I'd be happy for him to go, but. That was kind of a launch. This was the day after the 60th anniversary of the launch of Sputnik. So that little boop, 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 that little sound you heard there, that was the first time we had heard a signal from outer space when then Soviet Union had launched Sputnik satellite into space and launching the first round of the space race. What you got to know if you listen to that whole speech, and there's a link in the show notes here. If you will listen to Mike Pence's whole speech, what you're going to hear echoes of the things that I've been talking about on this podcast for a while about why I'm kind of like the space geek kind of guy on the one hand, but also why paying attention to this stuff right now, because he is basically saying right off the bat that this is going to be the next round of American capitalism. These are the galactic capitalists, folks, the ones I've been talking about. And Mike Pence is now positioning this National Space Council to basically be the point of the spear in the extreme capitalist colonization of space. So you watch it go forward from here. Now, basically, this was a signal that under the Trump administration, with Mike Pence at its head, they're going all in here. And so, all the more reason why in December my plans are to be in Houston for Space Comms, the first actual space commerce conference, which is going to bring all these kind of billionaires and space entrepreneur, asteroid mining companies together with NASA and all that. And I would put money on the fact that Mike Pence will actually be there.
I thought you were just going to get your picture with that Tesla guy.
With Elon Musk?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's. I mean, come on. I mean, you got my priorities. Of course, that's the number one thing, right?
That's like high up on the priority list.
Well, it's interesting. Elon Musk. I'm weird about that stuff, though. I don't like celebrity people. Well, from a distance, sure, I'll do that, right? I'll be like the fanboy from a distance.
Elon, over here, Elon.
But he's like, what's yeah, right? Hi, raging chicken, right? I talk about space on a podcast.
Here's my business card.
I'm from Pennsylvania, and I talk about space on this little podcast that I have. And, did I mention I like Star Trek? That's like. But seriously though, Elon Musk is actually an interesting character in this, in terms of kind of tracking the discourse around this kind of development and this kind of galactic capital expansion, because Elon Musk was always had poo-pooed, and like SpaceX had kind of poo-pooed the idea about going to the moon and said, look, we've already been there, we need something big. And just recently, we talked about this last week when Elon Musk was down in Australia, basically unveiling the plans for kind of Mars colonization and so on. A big portion of that was about how to get to the moon, and a lot of observers that were basically saying this was Musk's basically his compromise with Mike Pence, whether it was overt or overt or just kind of like signaling to them that we want your support here, and that was something that had not been in Tesla's plans or SpaceX's plans up until then. So that was kind of interesting to see itself play out, and now seeing that 1 week ago, right, this being ahead of what Mike Pence just did, you start to put these pieces together, and you can start to see how like there's an organized plan or an organizing plan about how to move this stuff forward. I'm telling you, and it is like you thought like extractivism on steroids was what we're seeing right here with hydraulic fracturing and things like this. Man, this is going to go to a whole new level. So watch out. Yeah, that's all I got to say, Sean. It's a good thing we have beer, I guess.
I actually have something fun.
Oh,
I'm
you
going to
do?
go to my first DSA meeting.
Oh, cool.
On Sunday.
All right, awesome.
Yes.
How'd it go? Are you sworn to secrecy? Did you have to take a
this
blood oath?
Sunday. This Sunday, I'm going to my first meeting.
Oh, this Sunday you're going. I thought you went.
Yeah,
one.
so like their monthly meetings out here in Harrisburg were always like 2 to 4 on Sundays, and I work till 4 o'clock. So I've just been nagging for a while. I was like, guys, can you push the time back so I can get out? So it's like 4 to 6:30. It's gonna be a potluck style, so I think we'll be sampling some Pizza Boy beers.
There you go. So that's what you're bringing.
Yeah, I'll be bringing some Pizza Boy stuff, some Pilsners.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, you're bringing the pills. Good.
But no, it looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. They're looking forward to setting up a bunch of committees on the agenda, like establishing different working groups. I'm going to try to push for establishing a social media and communications working group this week. So hopefully we can get a couple people on board with that and set up guidelines and start doing stuff on social media and messaging wise too. So that should be fun.
Yeah, it should. That sounds awesome.
Ramp up the propaganda agitprop out here in Harrisburg for DSA.
There you go. Speaking of which, we should also say that, excuse me, the Bucksmont DSA, they are actually going to be doing Medicare for All canvassing in Doylestown this weekend. And it's going to be from 12 to 3 p.m., and there is a beautiful flyer for it all. They're going to be meeting at 130 South Clinton Avenue in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And it's going to be Saturday, October 7th. That's tomorrow from 12 to 3 p.m. And they're going to start canvassing Medicare for All. Now, what's interesting about this, I didn't realize this initially, that, we were clued into this. Our new student fellow, right? Spencer David Potts was through that.
He's a youth DSA member.
Yeah. So we got a consolidation here. Yep. But what I didn't know, and this was this was fascinating to me, is that what I didn't know is that this is actually part of a nationwide campaign. Is that they actually had chosen a few areas, kind of areas of the country to start working on canvassing, right? And this is really, really good news for the left, right? Because basically, listen to this this interview with some national leaders of DSA, and they were basically saying, look, here, it's not enough just to have people talking online or whatever like this, but we have to getting back to some of the nitty-gritty organizing, right? And how to do this, and how to teach people, and how to train people how to do canvassing, right? And how to actually kind of go door to door and talk to people and to build capacity, right? Talking about things that matter.
If you listen to the free Chapo episode from this past week, I think the free episode. Yeah,
this must be where it was from. I don't remember which podcast it was that I was listening to. I bet you this is the one.
No, this is from Chapo Trap House.
Yep.
The girl who, Megan, I think her name is the girl who's on the show. She is a DSA member. She was in on that phone call with like 500 other people. The DSA pretty much has like 3 groups of DSA people throughout the country beta testing these wraps and it's coming up. So like they're actually going out and seeing which wraps work best. And they're going to rely on the canvassers and the organizers to report back and come up with a national wrap, your national pitch, your canvassing wrap to talk to people on this issue, which is pretty cool. It's it's awesome seeing them like using this wrap out here because it's something that can easily happen out here in Harrisburg. We have a couple of big markets in the area, like big farmers markets in West Shore and there's the West Shore Farmers Market in Lemoyne. There's the Harrisburg Broad Street Market, which brings out your progressive-minded people. Yeah, you're going to have your conservatives and your rich people come out and all, but there's areas out here in Harrisburg to actually do this stuff where people might actually listen and start building capacity.
No, that's right. And, this is why I say it's good news, too, as well. Is like, if you ever done any kind of organizing before, that idea about a wrap is like part and parcel to it, right? I mean, it's kind of like learning like how to, again, this sounds stupid, right? I mean, it sounds so elemental, but I can't tell you how important it is. It's like just gaining experience and actually just talking to people, right? Not kind of like, making an ideological pitch, not going out and kind of saying like, I want you to convince it here, and I'm going to tell you all the reasons why, but actually having real conversations with people about it. And then
it's also knowing how to listen to people, to talk to people.
Exactly.
And not just like listening, also listen through their facial expressions and stuff like that by talking to them.
No, absolutely.
One of the things, like when I became a bartender, I'm not the best socially, but like bartending wise, I feel like that's made me a lot better in talking to people, writing, because it's like I can read people and gauge what they're looking for. And then, it helps me as an interviewer out when I'm talking to people on the street. I'm not looking for the crazy sensationalist looking person to interview to get the soundbite. No, you're looking for the person who's the average middle class person that's getting screwed over by this and they want to speak.
Right. Right. No, it's true. I mean, I can't tell you how important it is. And, I remember when I was organizing, we were organizing adjunct faculty and graduate teaching assistants at George Washington University when I lived in D.C., that we started working with the UAW at some point. And the UAW came in and they gave us a bunch of training. And one of the things that they did was, was talk to us about the wrap. Right. And they were really insistent upon it. And for me personally, and some of the other kind of lead organizers that were part of that drive, we had been doing it independently up until then. And, we had our, like a lot of activists, right? You come to this, the reason why you start organizing this stuff is because you're already actively involved, right? And you have a political ideology with you and all that kind of stuff. And so we had an idea about why we were doing what we're doing and so on. When UAW folks came in and started training us and started wanting us to get this wrap down. Initially, we were kind of really resistant to it, right? We were resistant to it because it was like, it felt fake, right? I mean, it felt like, okay, we're doing this thing, it's just a wrap. But what we started to realize is like, no, it's actually just, this is how organizing happens, right? Is that you want to try to find out the best way to talk to people, right? I mean, the fact I'm a person who studies rhetoric, and that's essentially what we were doing. And it's kind of like this idea about beta testing is like, you want to go out and you want to be able to say, look, I want to talk about Medicare for all, right? Not to try to kind of like, have some sort of like Trojan horse to, bring about the socialist utopia, right? but because to have that Medicare for all is actually to get people health insurance, right? And that we're actively supporting this kind of stuff. And we want to be part of that struggle to kind of like move in that direction where people are taken care of. And so, but one of the things that you have to do is that you have to kind of have practice in talking to people about these things. Right. And that is, frankly, we do not get that practice on an everyday basis. Right. We can write treaties, we can kind of write analyses and that kind of stuff. But talking to people that we're not used to talking to about something like Medicare for all is not an experience we have it. So we have to do exactly what DSA is doing right now. So when I heard them talk about this on Chapo Trap House, I was like, wow. This is like, I can't tell you how good it feels to see that happening in a very kind of conscious explicit way. We're not going to let this happen, haphazardly or wait for some sort of spontaneous change. We're actually going to approach this as organizers. And, so kudos to that, and I wish them all the best. I wish I could be there tomorrow out there with them in Doylestown to go out there and do some of that canvassing. But I've got kid birthday party stuff tomorrow. So I wish them all the best. I hope that, we'll have a little bit of coverage on the ground there too as well. So cool. Yeah. So that's all good news. The other thing is on beer news for the week, I'll throw this in. Free Will is just released yesterday a new beer that is called PV Fest, and basically it's released in 16-ounce cans. They had the can release yesterday. I didn't get over there, but I'm going to be later on today. I'm going to go grab some. It's a traditional Marzen and Marzen, if you actually want to do the German right. So I'll pick some up today. I'll let you know what that is like next week. And also, I was also psyched. There's this restaurant here in Perkasie called Down to Earth Cafe. They do all kind of local sourcing of things. The same person who owns Down to Earth Cafe also runs the Bread Box Bakery in Perkasie. And again, locally sourced and very community oriented and so on, and has been working with people like Free Will Brewery. So they're getting together. They're partnering up for on October 22nd for the Free Will's Oktoberfest. And so Free Will's going to have 5 traditional German-style beers on tap. It's going to be at the Perkasie Brewhouse, and Down to Earth is going to be supplying the food for that. They're also going to have Free Will's also going to have steins available that you could pick up for $10 at the event. I'll let you know next week. I'll let you know if they have the steins available ahead of time, since I'll be headed over there yesterday. It looked like last time I was in there, looks like they were making room for some stuff, definitely, because a lot of the racks with some of the display beers that you have, you can go and kind of pick up 6-packs and that kind of stuff were cleared out. So they're clearly getting ready for our next round of brewing. So anything happening out your way?
We actually have a couple of things. So we canned Sunny Side Up this week. We've got like a couple hundred cases of it sitting on the floor.
That's always a joyous day.
Nice. Always a beautiful sight.
It is.
We released on tap, I believe in cans pretty soon, Winterfest. It is a collaboration with Cerveceria. I believe I'm probably saying it wrong. Don't have the name of the brewery off the top of my head. But the person who brewed the beer, they brewed the beer with, Ryan Witter. He used to be the head brewer, I believe, either at like Hill Farmstead or one of the head brewers at like Hill Farmstead or the Alchemist up in Vermont. Mm-hmm. And they brewed in October a rye Marzen Fest Ale.
Ooh.
So that came out really good. It's only like 4%, so it's nice and light. So you could drink a few of them and feel not get like bloated out after it.
Yeah.
So they're going to be canning, I believe, this week. They're going to be canning some other things coming up in the future. But yeah, our Sunny Side's up on. We have a new IPA on called Losertown. There's maybe like 4 or 5 kegs of that left. Most of that went to distro. Really nice IPA, so get it when you can. And yeah, everything sounds good. I know I'll be coming home in a couple weeks, so looking forward to bring some Pizza Boy stuff back for you.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. The cans of Sunny Side Up alone are just are glorious, so that's gonna be really cool. Well, lots of good stuff just in time for Oktoberfest, so it makes you feel like you want to embrace fall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So,
well, cool. Anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
Rest in peace, AIM. AOL Instant Messenger will be done December 15th.
Oh my God! What is the majority report going to do? That's my question.
What are a lot of union members going to do?
Yeah, well, what are a lot of 60-year-old people who still have AOL email accounts going to do? That's really the big question. Well, AIM, it's been a good ride. Missed that little yellow guy like at the bottom, which, whatever. I put that guy to rest a long time ago. And I didn't even realize AIM was still around. That's why I actually tried to message the majority report the other day and realized that it was actually, that's actually how they're still doing it. So we'll see what they come up with.
Start up another fundraising account page to set up an actual communications line.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right. Well, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Thanks for sticking with us today, folks. I want to remind you that you can become member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Just go to the support and membership tab at ragingchickenpress.org and click on Become a Member. We're still running our special through the end of the month. If you become a member at the $10 a month level, we'll send you a copy of Mark Bray's the Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook, or a Raging Chicken Press Stay Woke mug, or if you want, I have another couple copies of Naomi Klein's No Is Not Enough. So thanks for sticking with us, everybody. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We'll see you next week, everybody. Keep up the fight. See ya!